I thought there were not 2 chapters left. There are. So this is chapter 4, chapter 24, and then there'll be chapter 25. As the night black Humvee roared off, Elliot, Uchenna, and Raven emerged from the forest. No longer wearing their Sasquatch gear, they looked like 3 normal kids returning from a hike through the woods, except for the little Jersey devil floating from tree trunk to tree trunk above their heads. That was less than normal. "Children!" Professor Fauna shouted, opening his arms wide. "You have done magnificently well. Thanks to you and my good friend Mac, the phony smoke henchman. We have vanquished the Smoke Brothers yet again." "Are they gone for good?" Raven asked. "They're gone for bad," Mac replied, "but I doubt they'll ever come back here." "I have a question," said Elliot. "Why am I not surprised?" Mac chuckled. "Why didn't you tell us that you were working as one of the Smoke Brothers' surveyors?" Elliot asked. "You didn't think you could trust us? With the secret?" Mac looked at the ground. "It wasn't that. It was that I hadn't told Raven that I was working for the Smokes. I wasn't sure she would understand." He looked at Raven. "I know your mom would have been mad." Raven shrugged. "It was all part of the plan, right?" "It was, but I didn't know if you'd think it was worth it." Raven smiled at her father. "I think you're a hero." Max suddenly rubbed something from the corner of his eye. "Speaking of heroes," Raven went on, "we did a pretty good job Sasquatch impersonating, didn't we, Pop?" Mac furrowed his brow. "Well, things did look a little hairy for a while there, but when you took off your costume, you really pulled it off." "Pop!" Raven groaned. Then she threw her arms around him. "Seriously," Max said, "I'm proud of you, daughter. And you and your friends did an amazing thing, which is why, with Professor Fauna's permission, I'd like to give you something." He held out his hand. On his broad palm sat a silver ring. Raven looked closely. Inside a circle atop the ring was a raised design of a unicorn. "Is this?" Raven asked, lifting the ring up to study it. "Yes, daughter. It was your mother's. You know that every member of the Unicorn Rescue Society has one." "We don't wear ours," Uchenna said, holding up her bare fingers. "Too conspicuous at school. Also, the ones the professor gave us were way too big," Elliot added. "If you're giving this to me," Raven said, looking from her father to Professor Fauna, "that means—" The professor pulled himself up to his full height and announced in his most official-sounding voice, "We hereby make Raven an official member of the Unicorn Rescue Society." Raven gave a shout and jumped into the air, then spun toward Elliot. "Can you help me get it on?" Okay," Elliot said, confused, but he took the ring from Mac's hand and slipped it onto Raven's finger. "Perfect," Raven said. "Now we are legally engaged." Elliot's mouth fell open. Then Raven punched him in the arm. "Just kidding, boyfriend. I don't expect you to ask me to marry you until we are at least out of high school." Elliot stammered for a moment, but then Raven said, "Look!" Everyone turned. A large shape was making its way through the forest. The members of the Unicorn Rescue Society waited, barely breathing. And then the mother Sasquatch emerged from the underbrush. She was carrying a thick fir branch, peeled clean. Her children were standing all around her. Jersey leaped from a nearby tree trunk and landed on the mother Sasquatch's shoulder. She rubbed her hand against his blue cheek. The huge Sasquatch turned to gaze to the members of the Unicorn Rescue Society. The corners of her wide mouth turned up. She looked to her children and flicked her hand at the humans. The 3 little ones loped forward. Each one was carrying a small round stone. "Hold out your hands," Max said softly. Uchenna, Raven, and Elliot did as he said. The Sasquatch children dropped a small stone into each of their waiting palms. The stones were marked with a single spot of red berry juice. "Awesome," Uchenna whispered. The stone still held the warmth of the Sasquatch's hand. "Do I also receive a present?" Professor Fauna asked. Just then, the mother Sasquatch hurled the heavy branch at the professor. The tree limb was so large it knocked him down. "Muchas gracias," the professor gasped, sitting on the ground under his gift. The mother Sasquatch, who still had Jersey on her shoulder, knelt down. The 3 Sasquatch children came over to her and, one at a time, kissed Jersey on the head. Then the mother Sasquatch slid her hand under Jersey's belly and lowered him to the forest floor. Then the Sasquatch mother, followed by her little ones, turned and disappeared into the forest. Mac helped the professor remove the heavy branch from his chest and rise to his feet. I guess that was her way to thank you for going out on a limb. All three children rolled their eyes. Professor Fauna admired his weighty gift. Bien. This may serve as a walking stick, he said, attempting with little success to hold it in just one hand. And then he added, for very, very short strolls. Giving the little rocks Professor Fauna's massive walking stick. And I'll just go all the way on to chapter 25. I'm entirely certain of it being the last chapter. Just then, Elliot looked at his watch. Oh no, he exclaimed. Professor, are we done here? I need to get home or my mom will kill me. We are indeed done, Professor Fauna said, but there is a small matter of obtaining transport. I'm not sure the Phoenix is flight-worthy. In fact, he said, looking around, I cannot quite recall where I left it. In pieces, Uchenna said, scattered all over the forest in Oregon. Elliot groaned, I'm going to be grounded until I am 70 years old when I get back home, if I get back home. It's okay, Raven said. You can stay with us. Elliot took a deep breath. He could feel a panic attack coming on. Folks, Mac said, come with me. Everyone followed as Mac led them up past the bend, where the forest trail joined the paved main road. There, parked on the roadside, was Professor Fauna's small blue aircraft. Not only had it been pieced back together and furnished with new landing gear, the Phoenix looked finer than usual. Mi querida Evo... Let me try this. Let me do this slowly. Mi querida Eveoneta, que bonita quedaste. I do all right with that? Huh? Professor Fauna cried, and he ran over to the plane and began to rub his hands along the Phoenix's freshly repainted fuselage. As soon as I saw you hit that treetop, Mac said, I put in a call to a cousin of mine who works at the Boeing plant outside Seattle. He packs it up and delivered it here an hour ago. He just had one question for you, though. What is what? What is that? The professor said, looking up from where he stood with his arms wrapped lovingly around the right wing. He wanted to know, Mac grinned, if this plane came from the same folks who make Legos. Soon, Professor Uchenna, Elliot, and Jersey were on board. We don't ever say goodbye in Muckleshoot, Mac said, a serious look on his face. He paused. Instead, we say, toodaloo. How does one pronounce that? Fauna asked. Pop, Raven said. Get serious for just a minute, okay? Mac grinned. No, what we actually say is hoit. It sounds like hoit, which means something like the time we spend together is finished. But I might be better just to say the words, I will see you all later. And in the native, oh, it's turning all around. The letters in the native language I cannot begin to pronounce, but I'll show them to you right there. Tolabdu Bidsi. I don't know if I said that quite right either. Uchenna said, close enough, Max smiled. Uchenna pulled the door closed and Elliot strapped himself in as quickly as he could. Outside the window, Raven shouted, see you again, screams a lot. See you again, sings real sweet. Hoit, Uchenna and Elliot both yelled back. The Phoenix picked up speed as it roared down the road. The professor pulled back on the controls. The plane rose like a kite into the sky. In no time at all, it was a small blue speck, banking over the big trees, winging away from Sasquatch Valley, headed home to New Jersey. And to be continued, that's backwards for you, but it says to be continued. I guess there's many, many more books about the Unicorn Rescue Society. It was fun. Not my favorite book. I don't think I'll be reading many other Unicorn Rescue books, but I'll probably open up a discussion in a Google Classroom thread, and we can talk a little bit about this, and I'll figure out what I'm going to read next. I probably will not video record it, but I shall audio record it. Hope you enjoyed